the local recording is on, and we're resuming an old series that hasn't gone on for a while, where we interview a player, get to know a little bit more about their background. We have Ladandis, aka Sam Roher, from NorCal. Slash, you were in Pittsburgh for a while.
Yeah, I went there for college, but I grew up in NorCal.
Okay, that makes sense. So, let's give the people a little bit more background about you. How'd you get started into Melee? That's usually a good conversation starter. And not just Melee, but like competitive Melee.
When I went to college in Pittsburgh, I wanted to find something to do, and there was a Smash Club.
And that's it?
Yeah, I joined them. I remember I went and played with one of the guys, and I thought I was a Marth player. And he played Marth, and he whooped me in Marth Dittos. But I tried playing Puff, and I whooped him. So he told me I was a Puff player.
But you're not a...
I did. A year later, I ended up switching to Sheik. But I was a Puff player at first.
And what year was that?
2009.
2009, okay. So that, like... Because a lot of people think that you came in much later, but...
I kind of did.
So... Well, let's see. So you had a massive power spike in skill much later. We'll kind of go to that. But I guess my question to you is, before you went on your massive rapid improvements phase, and you played competitive Melee, or you heard of it and you kind of lightly dabbled in it, why not sooner?
So I didn't have a car, and I lived in the North Bay, and it was really annoying to go to San Francisco. So I'd hear about the tournaments in San Francisco on Smashboards in before 2009, but I'd never go to them, and I just played with my friends.
Okay, so you were one of those people that probably ended up getting to be the best out of your group of friends, but you didn't really get to travel to tournaments because the cost of it was just a hassle.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And then you went to the Midwest for a little bit. Was that for school or?
Yeah, that was for college.
Okay, and from my understanding, it seems like you were more of you played more League than Smash in part of that era.
Yeah, I actually didn't play Smash at all from 2011 to 2013. After a couple years playing Smash, I was like, well, this region's bad. I thought Pittsburgh was worse than it was. I played with Voodoo Jin and people like that. And I was under the impression that they would be consistently four-stocked by everyone I'd heard of from California.
Okay, and what time frame was that?
2009 to 2011, so early 2011.
And
I remember in 2011 I went to a Michigan tournament and I played Moose and Duck. I remember, and I beat Moose in the tournament, and I couldn't beat Duck at all in friendlies.
Interesting.
And then I went. Yeah?
Oh, go ahead, keep going.
And when I came home from that, I remember around that time my roommate quit, and I mostly played with him. And since he quit, I didn't really play anymore, and I started playing League of Legends. And so I stopped playing Melee until I moved back to NorCal eventually in 2013.
Fair enough, and you were actually pretty good from what I understand in League of Legends. Season 1, Season 2, you were pretty high on the ELO ranks.
Yeah, my peak was ranked number 24 in Season 2, I think. And then I started to drop off in Season 3 because I stopped liking the game as much.
Okay.
And stopped playing.
Out of curiosity, what positions did you play?
I played AD carry and top and mid at various times. I was big into the collegiate League of Legends scene, and my team needed different things in different years. I played top and AD carry for them, and then I liked playing mid a lot in solo queue.
Did you ever run into the other Smash players like S2J and whatnot?
Yeah, sometimes. I remember S2J bodied me in lane once in top, and then the next game I was higher elo than him, and I felt like playing top, so I took it from him anyway, and he got mad at me.
And then, but you peaked much higher than them. So, okay, so from my understanding in 2013 is roughly when you started to get more serious about the game.
Yeah, I moved back to NorCal after college. And so then in late 2013, I learned from League of Legends that if I play seriously, I can beat professional players at things. Whereas in 2009 to 2011, I kind of thought it was impossible.
So what about it? Like, what about because, you're getting, pretty darn good at multiple games, but like, what about League of Legends, like, gave you that epiphany?
Well, just because I played solo queue and got to a high rating and I could beat professional players in games.
But was it that you just kept playing, or did you scrutinize the game? Like, or did you just play and you kind of natural intuition and self-awareness get you to be number 24 in a game that has millions of people?
Yeah, pretty much just intuition and playing a lot. It wasn't as hard back then.
You would say the game's much harder now?
Yeah, well, there's a lot more players.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think it's harder to get to the top of the ladder now than it was.
Okay, so you go move back to NorCal, and you kind of have this, confidence or this sense of, hey, I can actually do this. There's like that glass ceiling you once thought you had above your head no longer exists. So I guess in that process from 2013 to finally winning the Arcadian, what was your practice regimen like? Who'd you play with? How were you, playing the game? How were you improving?
I just played as much as I could, and I'd read stuff about like Music King trying to four stock people, so I tried to four stock bad players. I went to every single tournament. It was a little bit like face roll, I think. Like I was going to every single local. And I'd lose to a given ranked player like 3 or 4 times, and then I'd start beating them. And eventually I started beating most of them.
And then to get to the Arcadian, 2014, I was in SoCal at the time, so I really didn't get to, watch, and I already moved out of NorCal. So who are the, standout people that you kind of worried about, or like were like saying like, this is my competition that I have to beat to win this?
So it was actually kind of cool because I ran into most of the unranked players who'd beaten me in my Arcadian bracket. I had Kenny Kwan, who had beaten me last time I played him, and Delphiki, who had beaten me last time I played him. And I thought a lot about how to beat each of them individually. I could beat both of them. And then Reason, Doc player, was ultimately Grand Finals. Mm-hmm. And Doc isn't very good, so I beat him.
So once you hit Grand Finals and you're like, yes, like, this is my Grand Finals, you're like, I got this in the bag.
Yeah, because I remember thinking in our winner's set that I could only lose on Stadium to him. I know I couldn't beat him on Stadium for whatever reason, but I beat him on every other stage. And then in Grands, I went in and he was warmed up and I hadn't played, so I lost game 1, but I thought, like, oh, I'll definitely win this set. I'm warmed up now. And that one happened again, and I can only lose on Stadium. And I won 3-2, losing on Stadium and winning every other game.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah. And yeah, I hadn't played him before, but everyone I remember, each part of NorCal was telling me that finals was going to be between me and their best player. And so I felt like I would win the tournament.
Gotcha. And I believe you had a little rivalry with SoCal Arcadian at the time.
Not really, actually. So he was really good. He was like not a real Arcadian, I think.
So to give context to everybody who watches this, we're talking about Santiago, aka Little Fumi. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. I thought I'd be able to beat him because, people were talking him up a lot, but they were talking up everyone a lot, and I was beating everyone who they were talking up who was like had no results. But they were right about him, and they weren't right about all the other people.
That's pretty
He was like not a real unranked player. He was like only unranked because he never went to anything. So he was a lot better than me, and he beat me in the one set we had. But yeah, it was never really a rivalry. We both respected each other a lot. We both still respect each other a lot.
That makes sense. So now you're so at this point you're established here because from my understanding, most California Arcadians usually pan out pretty well. At least the winners do. Like S2J was one. I forgot who else were other Arcadian winners. Needless to say, like all of them, it means that you're.
I don't know if I agree with that, but
what was that?
The more recent, I don't know if I agree with that. The more recent Arcadian winners haven't really done anything.
Well, I mean, up to the point that you won the Arcadian.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just like kind of build context here. It's like, okay, like most Arcadians to that point did pretty well.
Yeah.
And so, you go through this next year, and I think this is probably one of the most difficult humps to surpass. It's like when you start like beating the unranked players and you're like borderline rankable, you're at the bottom of the PR, and you kind of struggle to kind of climb up. So do you want to tell us a little bit about like that 2014 year and like trying to like kind of come up and break through?
Yeah, so at that point, every national, I felt like I lost to some bullshit. I felt like...
Why don't you, for the stream at home and for the YouTube watchers, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your brackets that you encountered?
Okay, so I remember at EVO, I lost to Bizarro Flame and Eddie Mexico. And I felt like I just didn't know how to beat Luigi and Ganondorf. And at MLG, I lost to Eddie Mexico again and Abe Rookie, and I just felt like I didn't know how to beat Mario and Luigi. And then, and this kept happening to me. I always felt like it was some matchup I didn't know more than me not being good enough to beat them. And I always wished I could play, Foxes and Marts instead of weird mid-tiers. But I always felt like after each of these losses, I would like figure out the character, and I'd be able to beat him next time.
Yeah.
But it's still, I kept running into new characters, and to me, that was most of 2014. I also think I had a big choking issue until Pound 2016.
So, in those kind of scenarios, like what was going through your mind that... I know we talk back and forth, and you have your own theories. We'll kind of touch on that. But why do you think at that? What were like some of the mental blocks that you were having, if any?
So for choking, I was just sometimes nervous. There have been a lot of things I've gotten over. Every kind of negative thought I've had, I've gone through and found a way to reframe until eventually I'm out of them. If that makes sense.
Okay, so you were able to... It's like that nagging, like, negative voice in the back of your mind. You're able to, like, reason it out.
Yeah, and each time I came up with a negative thought, I'd kind of, like, figure out a way to reframe it so I wouldn't have that one anymore until there weren't any more that I was having.
So why don't you, like, tell us an example of one of them?
So, well, this isn't a negative thought so much as, like, if I was ahead, yeah, I would start trying to just kind of do cheesy things and hope eventually they'd work. Okay. I remember I had a set against Smoke where I had 2 stocks at low percent and he had 1 stock at high percent. It was the last game and I thought, oh, this is over. I'll spam down smash and he'll get hit eventually and die. But his punish game in the matchup is really good and he didn't get hit eventually and die and I lost the game. And that's kind of a stupidly simple example, but that kind of thing would happen. Like I'd spam simple cheesy things if I was way ahead. And I'd throw leads a lot that way.
So you weren't playing your game anymore. You're just kind of hoping that it would close, the cheese would close it out.
Yeah, and I've definitely fixed that one. I don't do that anymore. Yeah, and then thinking like, what if I don't play my best? Like, what if I lose? I've really fixed that one too. Yeah, it's a lot of ideas like that, like complaining about characters in my head I don't do anymore.
Did you ever get to that point where, because you mentioned that you slowly overcame the people that used to beat you, or like all the unranked players, but at any point did you ever worry if things got close that unranked player that you used to always beat would like possibly beat you?
Yeah, I had a big problem with that for a long time. I always, whenever I had to play a Fox on the PR, I would always not want to play the Fox because I felt like if they play good, they'll beat me. Like, I played Zelda Freak like 5 times in 2014 to early 2015, and he was definitely every single time we played, it would be last stock, last hit, and I always won. But I was always thinking, next time I play Zelda Freak, I'm going to lose.
Mm.
And eventually, what I realized was that I should stop thinking of it as me being inconsistent and start thinking of it as, if this player beats me, he's outplayed me. So all I have to do is make sure I play my game, and then if I lose, there's something to learn. And so there's no possible problem.
And that's a pretty good mindset to carry.
Yeah, that's the one I've come to that I like for players who are considered worse than me.
At what point did you really think, because you're practicing, you're doing a lot more grinding, a lot more than you do now, unless I'm totally wrong. At what point did you kind of realize, hey, like, you know what, like, I'm actually like pretty good at this game?
Probably when I became obviously fourth in NorCal. I don't know. I think my confidence has always been much better than my results.
Mm.
I think the public perception of me has always been worse than my results, and my perception of me has always been better than my results.
I see. Did you? So you won the Arcadian. What were like some of the tangible goals you were setting for yourself, if any?
So by the time I won the Arcadian, I already had a lot of ranked wins and was definitely going to be ranked in the next period anyway.
Were you disappointed in where they placed you?
I was. Kind of. I mean, I was okay with it that period, actually, because it included the entire time I'd been playing in NorCal.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't good at the beginning, so I had so many bad losses.
Okay. But like,
so I was okay with that one. I was not okay with the next one, actually.
And that's fair.
But so at that time, I remember saying, right after I started, like, in a year I want to be the best player in NorCal. And I thought I would be. And I wasn't. And I started to fall further and further behind my goal and get more and more disappointed, but I'm still going. I don't know, my goals I think are unrealistic sometimes.
Do you think that's a bad thing, though?
No, there's no real problem. I don't get that disappointed or upset if I don't meet my goals. I just kind of start working harder. A lot of times, as I've been improving, I've thought that I was getting stuck, so I've had to really change the way I was practicing or improving, and I've done that a lot.
Okay, so it's like kind of a path setter for you, and you're more concerned with that than like the actual results that kind of happen.
Yeah, I think being results focused is a really good way to not get any results. So I'm trying to. So I've always been more path focused.
Okay.
And the results are just a goal and something I say.
Makes perfect sense.
Sure. Yeah.
So you're kind of moving along. You're improving. I think for a good while. At what point? Just kind of reminding me. At what point were you kind of the clear like number 4 behind the big 3 of NorCal?
I think mid 2015. I remember there was a point, and I couldn't beat Brandon, Homemade Waffles, for a really long time. And then I beat him once at the Foundry, and I thought he was playing terrible. I thought, oh, that was weird. I shouldn't have won that. He played really bad. And I told him I thought he played bad. I don't know if I should have said that. But after that, I went on like a 10-win streak against him. And that was when I really got solidified as number 4.
What do you think it was that allowed you to finally just keep beating him? Was it just that you just improved over time, or?
Yeah, I think it was improvement over time. I always was able to beat his Falco, right from when I first showed up. He beat me once with Falco, and then he couldn't beat me with Falco anymore. He had to play Fox. And I had a big Fox matchup problem, I think, and I worked a lot on that. And that's really what let me overcome him.
And then 2015 was a pretty interesting year for you overall. This was like, I think you're kind of like, I'd say 2014 was the year where you're kind of getting like the final top 64. This was when you were starting to see the top 32s, like the top 48s.
Yeah, I think in all of 2015, I was pretty much starting from 2015 till now. I think I've always hit top 32 at almost every tournament I go to. Except for Apex 2015, I remember being really disappointed because I practiced a lot. I felt like I was really good. going into Apex 2015. And I lost to Amsa and Leah Gello. And I just felt like I'd been cheesed out by stupid matchups again, and I kept saying to everyone I was retiring forever. And then I unretired like 3 days later. Because Toph, I talked to Toph about it, and he said that the reason I was so upset about that was because I'd clearly gotten a lot better and my performance had gotten worse.
So back to the results kind of mindset.
Yeah. And that nationals just aren't as linear as locals. Because I'd gotten used to if you improve at a local level, I know who all my threats are. And if I learn to beat one of them, now I place higher consistently. But that wasn't quite how it worked at nationals. And I didn't realize that until after Apex 2015.
Did you ever feel like, hey, it's like, you know, I'm slowly learning these matchups, like Onsite, you know, can pass these barriers, like this is where my huge kind of power spike will come in?
Yeah, after that one, after that tournament, that was the last time I felt like I got janked out by matchups. After that, I started choking every time. And I had all these close call sets that I should have won, but I choked, versus Bladewise and Silent Wolf and SFAT a lot, and Shroomed a lot, and just like every national, I feel like I choke away a set. And that was my big issue in 2015. Was choking everything away.
Did you, so I know for you, you kind of got along with, you got along with Toph, you know, he had the, you know, what was it, the Anime Thursdays?
Yeah, Asian movie night. Not anime, just Asian movies.
Oh, Asian movies, okay.
Yeah, we'd all watch. It was Toph, and Zoo was part of that, but he kind of left NorCal right when I joined the Asian movie night. So I was never there at the same time as Zoo. It was like Blue Fox, XT, Violence, Kenny Kwan, all of them. And I'm still close with all those guys.
Okay. So, you know, you have the group of people you're very close with, but did you ever feel like you're an outsider with the rest of the group? Because I know that you had a very hard time going to some locals. You know, I know that you have resolved that kind of little thing that you had with Scar.
Yeah.
But
all of NorCal talked about how lame my play style was constantly. It was so annoying. Everyone would like, sometimes people like Brandon and Daryl would leave tournaments rather than play me. And people would like complain when they were playing friendlies with me. It was bad.
How'd you initially take that?
I didn't take it very well. I tried not to play. I never asked to play friendlies with any of the people who would complain a lot. I mostly played friendlies with Shroomed and Azusa.
Okay.
Back at that time.
But did it kind of drag on you? Because I know that for the longest time between that and, you know, being ranked 19th, when, you know, you're probably at least top 10 or 11 around that time.
Yeah.
Did you feel like you were isolated, or did you feel mad at the region? Like,
I was definitely mad at the region, but I kind of let that fuel me. Like, I wanted to practice and get good and, like, prove to these people that, like, I'm better than all of them. And I thought, like, well, if you're going to play up all my losses and downplay all my wins, I should have no bad losses and constantly, every tournament, beat everyone outside of the top 3. And I kind of did, and that's why they ultimately had to rank me 4th, I think. I would have, like, no bad losses for the whole period.
Do you think that drive got you to 4th, but do you think that, like, is because, like, you've kind of proven yourself to that level that now that's kind of missing and kind of making that last jump to try to get number 1?
I don't care as much about number 1 in NorCal anymore. Now I care more about world rankings. Nowadays it feels like there's sort of a tier of players in NorCal who are, like, who will always win a NorCal local if they go. And none of them ever go. So part of why I'm not interested in the NorCal rankings anymore is because there's not really NorCal locals.
Not like an SSS or a Mayhem where everybody, you know, kind of comes together, right?
Yeah, and there used to be.
So I've been kind of like, so I don't know the specifics of this, but it seems like NMW kind of puts little jabs at you. Like with the combo video, he kind of added an extra segment.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. I don't know. I like NMW a lot.
So is it more of like it's more of a friendly thing then?
That's more of a friendly thing, yeah.
The more of the meme, like, hey, like, we're polar opposites. He thinks you're lame, you think Falcon's lame, but it's like, you guys know that it's like good fun.
Yeah. And I go on tilt a lot of the time if I'm playing friendlies against the Falcon. And I think a lot of the segment at the end of his video, of his combo video, is all him killing me while I'm on tilt, so I'm doing something stupid. Like that one time I down smashed 3 times at the ledge, and then he like ledge hop kneed me.
That's so funny. So you finally go around. I would say you kind of closed 2015 on a slightly bad note, I would say.
Yeah, I was ranked around 59th, which I think was reasonable for my results, but I felt like that was because I was choking all the time, and that if I could just not choke in tournament, I'd be like top 30 for sure. And I remember I said that on Twitter to Hugs, and he was like, that's ridiculous. Like, don't just say stupid stuff. And I was like, I'm serious.
But that's where your confidence kind of comes in, because you believe that, and you know that, if certain things went slightly different, then, like, things would change greatly. Like, that 49th could have been, like, a 17th.
Yeah, and just, like, I felt like in friendlies, the level of play I was exhibiting was top 30. I just was choking in tournament.
Mm-hmm. So, we go on a clean slate, and I know that you're not happy about the 2015 SSBM rank, and, I think... I was not unhappy with that rank from a ranking perspective. I felt like it ranked me reasonably. I was just really unhappy with my results being that bad. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair. In 2016, though, you started, kind of picking up your groove again. You'll go from like 33rd at HGC and like 49th at Big House, and then you hit Genesis 3 with a decent stride. You get top 32.
Yeah, I beat Swedish Delight there. I'd actually beaten Swedish Delight before, also.
And Swedish Delight's also been, pretty improving. So that's like a really impressive win. But you finally
get your big breakthrough. Bad at Cheek Dittos this.
You finally get your big breakthrough, right? Pound 2016.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about that experience of, let's see. Try to remember if you played somebody else before Wes in that bracket.
I played Unknown.
Okay, and how did that go?
Well, let me actually move a bit further back.
Okay, let's do that.
So, I remember the week before Pound, I went to a Mayhem with SFAT and Tope. We all went down, and we were going to practice and do well at Pound. So at this Mayhem, I played Lucky in Winners Semis, and I completely choked it. Like, I totally should have won that set. I was up 2 stocks to 1 in the last game, and I just felt myself lose it. I was like, oh god, I'm choking. No more good decisions are going to happen for me this game. And I just lost. Because I handed that to him for free. And I was so mad, I'm like, I'm going to beat Lucky in losers. And then he beat SFAT in winners, and SFAT beat me in losers. And then SFAT won the tournament. But I was like, oh, I should have gotten second at that tournament. I know I couldn't beat SFAT at the time, but I was gonna get second. I should have. I hate choking, and I came home, and Dewan told me, if you're choking and you're up 2 stocks to 1 and you die, sit on the spawn platform until you're not choking. I was like, that is the craziest idea that I've never thought of.
Wait, you never thought about using that cloud to, like, think for, like, 2 seconds to say, like, you know what, like, I'm going to, like, unwind and kind of reset. That never, like, came across.
Well, so all of my choking before that had been, like, negative thoughts entering my head, bad mindset, and everything. And that set, I felt like my thoughts were fine. It was just, like, pure nerves, and I was physically shaking. And I hadn't really experienced that kind of choking, so much as, like, bad tournament mindset choking. And that was, I remember, like, I thought the last step. Like, I've gotten, my mind is perfect, and I just need to get over this one thing. And so sitting on the spawn platform was, like, my key. And I remember when I played Westfalls at Pound, I was up.
Wait, let's go over Unknown first, right?
Okay, Unknown.
So Unknown, like for me, like he was actually like a big struggle for me as Sheik. You know, I don't know what it is about Unknown, so like, but you seem to do pretty well against him. But like, how did that set go?
I think a lot of that was out of tournament factors, honestly, because I don't know why, but I woke up hours before the tournament started. And so I walked to the tournament, which was like an hour-long walk through the freezing cold. And then I was there like 3 hours before, and I just warmed up the whole time. And I think he woke up right before the set, and it was free. Like, he'd been kind of hard for me in friendlies in NorCal. And I remember going into the tournament when I saw my pool, I was more worried about Unknown than Westfalls. I was like, if I play Unknown, I might lose, but if I beat him, I'll beat Westfalls. Because I'd watched Westfalls versus Swedish, and it looked easy. Swedish's anti-Westfalls strategy is very simple, and I knew I could implement it.
So you throw Unknown, and you get a lot of confidence. You're like a lot of confidence in him. I think out of all the number one seeds in the second round pools, that's probably the one of the few that you wanted the most to do well at the tournament.
Yeah.
So you go through the set. So what's kind of going on?
So game one, he went Fox, and I talked to Swedish for hours about Westfalls before this tournament. And Swedish told me, like, his Fox is bad, here's his bad habits, here's what you do. And I did it, and I totally beat his Fox. It's not a problem. Game two, he goes Falco on Yoshi's, and it's, like, too fast and too much. And a bunch of the tricks I didn't like. You know, I thought about them, but if you haven't played against it, it's a little harder to handle. And so I couldn't handle some of his stuff.
Like he just approached you in weird angles, and you didn't think he was going to get to that spot quickly, or he'd SDI something to kill you.
Yeah, SDIing weird mostly, more than neutral.
Yeah, those SDIs are weird. I've definitely
Yeah.
So now it's 1-1. I believe you went Dreamland Game 3. Gives you some space, gives you some breathing room. Like, what's going through your head?
And I just did the Swedish thing where you just wait. And Westfalls doesn't handle waiting very well. He gives you free hits, and so he gave me enough free hits that I won.
You didn't feel nervous at all? Like, because I think it kind of got close, and I think he kind of timed up his game, and you realized, like, hey, I could lose. So, you know, other times you mentioned something to me where you're like, up 2 stocks to 1, and then you throw it. What was the difference here?
Well, I'd fixed all my mental stuff. Just like I felt like I was finally out of mental stuff, and then when he killed me and I had 2 stocks left, I sat on the platform until I wasn't choking, and then I won.
Okay, so you didn't let anything come into your way to make you lose.
Yeah.
And you just played your game.
Yeah. And I really thought I had a game plan that would beat Westfalls. I was very, very confident.
So at this point, you know, maybe I think Swedish is a little kind of unhappy in his mind because it's like, I could beat Westfalls pretty well, but Ladanis beat me last time.
Yeah, I was 5-0 against him in games at that point.
Ooh.
And after that tournament, I'm 5-5.
Oh no.
But I feel like what that taught me is that my anti-Sheik game is a little cheesy. I thought my Sheik Ditto was my best matchup because I played so much with Shrooms. But I think I only understood how to beat Shrooms, and I had a lot of cheese that beat everyone else. But, you know, I've been
using... think that he knew how to deal with the cheese this time as opposed to, like, the previous times?
Yeah, I'd just been doing it to him for 2 tournament sets. He adapted, and I hadn't really experienced someone who had adapted to my cheese before. So I almost didn't know the matchup. I just kind of had a cheesy approach to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think after that, he just had a more solid fundamental game plan in the matchup than I did.
At that point, you have to kind of play him honestly, and if you have to do that, he does that a little bit better.
Or just, like, I didn't understand how to play the Sheik Ditto, honestly.
Mm.
Like, I think my Sheik Ditto was quite weak if they weren't handing me free crouch cancel grabs.
So you're implementing a lot of Mute King stuff.
Yeah, basically. I actually think that figuring out how to beat me is probably a big part of why he beat Mewtwo King later. Because I think I was kind of Mewtwo King light against him, and kind of gives him a foothold for how to beat Mewtwo King real.
Yeah, I mean, he's seen some success before.
Yeah.
So you lose 2-0, and then you're in the losers bracket, and everybody at this point is pretty tough. So what were you thinking after you lost? Trying to remember, you played Bladewise?
Yeah. So I'd beaten Bladewise actually at Big House 4. I 2-0'd Bladewise. Because I played so much with Azusa. Big House 4, I didn't think I was that good, but I was so good against Peach.
Just from Azusa?
Yeah. Azusa is very good against Sheik. Like, very, very good.
Yeah.
But then I lost to Bladewise at Paragon because I choked. And I was like, there's no way I'm losing to Bladewise this turn. I'll only lose to Bladewise if I choke. I'm not going to choke. I'm good against Peach, and I did. I dropped the game. I was a little nervous, but I just didn't. I just played my game, and I knew my game would beat him.
You beat him, and then you have a interesting set with Gravy, and I believe game 1 doesn't go very well for you.
Yeah, I remember he was pivoting and doing Falcon aerials, and I didn't really understand how to play against Falcon aerials at the best of times, and he was doing them really fast, and I was really confused. And so he four-stocked me. I just kept getting hit. And then I decided to ledge camp because I didn't know what else to do. And he did not handle that effectively at all. When I got on the ledge, I just up B there until all momentum was reset. And he was kind of not reacting properly anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And if you test someone's reactions like that over and over, eventually it kind of grinds them down. And he didn't know how to steal the ledge. I'd never tried that against Nick because he gets the ledge really fast. But Grady didn't know how to do it.
So you went with the strategy that he just didn't know how to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have it was a pretty close set. I was pretty entertained. It went to all 5 games.
Yeah.
But, you adapted well. It's one of those many sets where one player wins a 4-stock and then somehow loses.
Yeah. That's a really high level thing or a cheesy thing. I think in my case it was a cheesy thing.
That's pretty funny. And then the next set, I think at this point, many people thought there's no way that you're gonna win this set against Nintendo.
Yeah, at this point I was thinking I was gonna lose every set. I thought I was gonna lose to Gravy for sure. I thought I was gonna lose to Nintendo for sure. But I played so much with Diz. And I make Diz, Diz wants to wobble me, so he wobbles every friendly. And I like being wobbled in friendlies. I don't like playing friendlies against ice climbers who aren't wobbling me. And Nintendo messed up on the FD game and gave me that.
Well, yeah, or maybe did you steal it with transforming into Zelda and pulling a...
Yeah, I stole that one. Once I made that recovery, I just kind of had a total read on him because I knew that he's in his own head. And so the rest of that game, he kind of just let me kill him.
And then you kind of rode the momentum, and in Game 5...
I don't think I actually did ride the momentum because he won the next game, and then I gave away Game 4 in a similar way to how he gave away Game 2. I just kind of... I made a lot of mistakes. I did shield drop aerials too high on his shield and got shield grabbed. And then Game 5, I remember I thought, should I adapt? Should I change something? And then I thought, no, consciously I have no idea how to beat Nintendo. If I'm going to beat him, it's because my subconscious mind is smart enough to beat this guy. I will do the exact same thing on the same stage and hope I don't mess up this time. And then I just kind of let my subconscious go crazy, do whatever it wanted, and it was smart enough to beat Nintendo.
And you're one of the few people, other than maybe Drug Fox, that's beaten Nintendo with Sheik.
Yeah.
So you're riding confident, you're riding some momentum. Like, did you think that you could possibly take this tournament or make it to grand finals at this point?
Yes.
Hmm.
Well, I actually did not know why I lost to Swedish till late, and I didn't know how I would beat him if I played him again. I just had no idea. But I thought if I beat him, I could maybe win. Except I don't think I could beat Hungry Bones. But I kind of had, I don't know. I thought I could maybe win, yeah.
Okay, so you make top 8, which I think is later in the day, because I think it was like a 2-day event.
Yeah, it was later in the day.
You have SUJ, which...
Yeah, I knew I'd win that.
What was that?
I knew I would win that set.
Yeah. Didn't crotch cancel, and it felt like, you beat Gravy, who seemed more in tune with Sheik, so you felt pretty confident there.
Yeah. SUJ, I felt like the two things that kept going through my head the whole time were Nick and Weedlord talking about how SUJ doesn't seem to believe in crouch canceling. And Toph had been telling me that he thinks aggressive players do better versus Falcon. So my two thoughts were attack a lot and crouch cancel a lot. And that worked.
So it was like the total opposite strategy that you implemented against Gravy.
Yeah. I didn't ledge camp at all. I was pretty confident SUJ would be able to take the ledge.
And then it worked.
Yeah, it worked.
So, and then lastly, you had your nemesis. You didn't know what to do in winners. You had Swedish. Did anything change for you, or what kind of happened there?
No, I think I was a little overconfident. I think I assumed that I played poorly in winners. But I think, again, I just didn't have a good enough understanding of the matchup, so I think I didn't really have a chance to win.
And then that's where your run ended.
Yeah.
But
if I'd studied the winner's set in between those, I think I could have maybe won the loser's set. But I didn't expect Swedish to, I didn't expect to run him again the same tournament, so I figured it would be safe to leave studying the set until after.
Do you think you'd be able to beat him now?
Maybe. I don't think I could beat him if I played him in tournament tomorrow. But I think I will be able to beat him by the time of Vegas.
So it seems like you do a lot of studying and discussing. Is that how you approach matchups at this point? Because it seems like at this point, tech skill's pretty solid. You have the more complicated stuff like shield dropping, down pretty well. What point? At this point, do you just pretty much think of just optimizing little things and just studying matchups and players, or what kind of is preventing? You're around 25 now. What will bump you to 15?
Yeah.
What kind of thing would you have to work on how would you have to go about it?
So I need to practice more tech skill. My tech skill's not really there right now. I need to just keep improving. It used to be that I had glaring weaknesses that were keeping me back, but now it's just that I'm slightly deficient compared to top or better players than me in every area. So I feel like I can almost work on anything I want. It's I feel like all my stat bars are about equal.
But they're rapidly improving.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and I'm also at the point where it used to be a lot more beneficial to grind endless games. Now it's a lot more beneficial to play a few games and then study them and see how I could improve them.
Do you recommend that for other people?
I think it's not good until you reach about a top 50 level. I think when you're sort of starting or you're unranked, you just there's so many situations you haven't even thought about that you'll play and you'll just be do something random, and you have all kinds of places for your brain to go the whole friendly, so you can just do whatever you want and you'll just get better. But then where I am now, I feel like I've sort of reached the point where I naturally go in every area, so I have to I've reached what my subconscious mind does, or its peak in every area. So I have to have I have to study what I'm doing, go through and adjust little things individually.
What do you think about the people who kind of, because Gravy is clearly pretty good, But what do you think about the people who are starting on day one and trying to like go for like hyper specific niche things from the get go?
I think if you're starting out, it doesn't really matter what you do. As long as you put constructive thought into the game, you'll get better. You put constructive thought into anything you want. There's so many ways to be good at Melee. And when you're starting out, you're so bad at all of them.
So you're just pretty much saying, like, whatever you do, you just got to put in the time.
You got to put in the time, and you got to be constructive about it. You can't be thinking, like, you can't be trying to make sure you're playing your best because you're, like, too bad for that. You just have to make your best better all the time and just figure out stuff. And as long as you're figuring stuff out and you're getting better at everything, it doesn't really matter what you're studying or how you're studying.
Right on.
I think.
So let's see. So we can go to some like fun stuff. So like, how did that whole like let's kind of go on hyper more that not like you like rapidly improving, but more of the memey things that you have a reputation for. Like how did the Falcon stuff kind of happen?
So the Falcon stuff, the way that started is that it was really annoying that whenever I played with Falcons in friendlies, they would complain the whole time about how lame it was and how I was just like so annoyed with that I just started doing it back to them. And it's eventually, I do actually think Falcon's the most annoying character by a lot for me to play against. But I started doing it because saying absurd complaints about Falcon was more fun than listening to the Falcon players complain about me. So it was kind of a countermeasure.
And was this because we mentioned earlier how you kind of felt like that was this around the same time where like you felt very invalidated as a player in NorCal? That as a response to that, you were doing all this?
No, I think the complaining about character stuff started in Pittsburgh.
I see.
Yeah, the NorCal thing was much later.
And then that kind of rode, you're slowly growing your Twitter presence. What other big memes are like you known for other than the Falcon?
There was the complaining about Fruit Loop thing that I kind of had to stop doing because he asked me to stop.
Wait, who?
Fruit Loop.
Oh, the Fruit Loop thing. He actually got you to stop?
Yeah, he asked me to stop, and I felt like if he actually minded it, I probably shouldn't do it anymore, so I stopped.
Aww. It's like at a point where you're like, oh, like I feel like an asshole.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I've been through that before.
Yeah.
I used to troll, what's his face? What's that Sheik player from Santa Barbara's name?
Okami?
Jojo,
yeah.
I used to troll him so hard until like one day at EVO he was just like, hey, like that actually is like really annoying and I actually want you to stop. And I felt really bad.
Yeah, I know how that one feels. And then, I don't know, there was the computer cold fire thing.
The what?
So I'm not really known for that. It's not me exactly. So in the Smash documentary, there's this great scene where they explain that Mewtwo King used to beat Ozin, and Ozin used to beat KDJ, and KDJ used to beat Mewtwo King because, like, Mewtwo King's a computer and he can process Ozin. And I thought it was, like, the funniest thing because it's, like, so inaccurate.
It was a bastardized version of, like, what actually happened, right?
Yeah. Well, I think what actually happened is Mewtwo King was bad against Sheik.
Oh, yeah.
And was better than the other two. But it was like, I thought it was so funny. So we all started talking about computer cold fire and which players are computer and which are cold and which are fire. That was actually how Toph phrased the thing against Falcon to me, is he said players who are fire are really good against Falcon. So I was thinking about being fire against the S2 thing. I thought that one was great. I talked about improving a lot. That was because you made that improving players video. And I felt like the players who talked about improving were just players who tweeted about improving a lot and not necessarily people whose results were improving, like mine. So I decided to exaggerate and I decided I would tweet twice a day that I was getting better. I just did for like a month. And it happened to, a week after I started, I happened to get fifth at pound. Like, that was completely coincidental. That I started tweeting about improving at the same time as I had a breakout performance. So that really solidified that forever.
That was so funny. To be fair, at that time, I already thought you were like top 40 at least.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what other memes I'm known for. I just say stupid stuff sometimes. I don't know if it's like... I like saying stupid stuff because I think that the way people look at melee balance is like much too simple. So when they ask me things like who's the best character, I just like say absurd things.
Like, okay, well, I guess it kind of reverted back to serious. Like, what do you think about I mean, you joke around with Falcon. You kind of joke around with Sheik. Sometimes I'm not sure, like what you actually think about the characters and like what kind of like caricatures you're trying to put up. So like, what do you really think about like how the top tiers are?
So I think if you take the top 8 characters, right, you can pretty neatly separate them into 4 categories. There's like Fox and Marth are really intensely good. And then Sheik and Falco have like a really honest neutral, but kind of have a hard time converting in the same way as the other characters do in the top 8. And they're the hardest to play, I think. Then I think Sheik and Falco.
And we're just talking at top level, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think the way Peach and Puff play is they can like test your opponent's patience really well, and there's certain skills they don't really need. And then I think Falcon and Ices are really good at getting random kills out of small mistakes by the opponent, but are otherwise inferior to the other top 8 characters.
But have the potential to make upsets because of the nature of their...
Yeah, because they have very swingy hits off of like very small things, and it's easy to convert. Like if you randomly throw a Falcon Stomp, you don't really need to be all that present to get a kill if it hits. As opposed to like a Sheik grab, where I think if you're kind of choking and you randomly grab someone with Sheik, you're probably getting nothing with that.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced that.
You get a positional advantage, and then you have to continue to play well to close it out. And I think how good you think these characters are is based on how much you value all these traits. Like you think, well, if someone's playing well, Sheik and Falco are better characters than Falcon and Ices. But like, does that matter as much? And like, if a Peach plays against an impatient Fox, that's a great matchup for Peach. Peach versus impatient Fox.
Yeah.
And so like, how good you think Peach is partially based on like how much you value this and how much you value like how important and difficult you think these skills are. Like if I say that like Peach beats Sheik, for example, right? I think Sheik needs a different skill set to be good against Peach than Peach needs to be good against Sheik. And who you think wins this matchup is based on how difficult you think it is for a human to develop these skills.
Right, and that's why you see the cases where, like a Sheik could whoop Fox and Falco, but somehow lose to like Puff, Samus, Peach.
Yeah, exactly. That's really common, actually. And so, like, I think it's hard for me to put a number on these matchups because the skills you have to develop are so different.
Right.
Between the different characters. And so if someone asks me who wins, I just say Sheik loses really bad. Unless they seem really interested in having a deep discussion about it.
That's right, and I totally agree with you because a lot of people are like, because we kind of linger in the Sheik boards, right? And a lot of people ask me, I'm not sure if they ask you, it's like, why do I suck so much against Peach? I'm like, oh, your neutral's probably not good, and you're probably not patient enough to kind of hold advantages and let them hang themselves.
Yeah, and there's a lot of weird specific stuff with Peach in particular too that you have to know.
Yeah.
I think Sheik has to know a lot of weird specific stuff to handle Peach, Puff, and Ice Climbers. She can handle all three of them, you just like really have to learn some things.
So what do you think about the other Sheiks in the like relevant meta? Or like, no, let's see. Not relevant meta. Let me rephrase that. What do you think about the other top Sheiks? Like we can kind of run down the list. Like
okay. Mewtwo King, I think his like approach to neutral with Sheik is very cheesy, and he lets himself get cornered because he's good in the corner. But I think his knowledge of micro situations and how to win them is the best of every player with all of his characters. Or at least with Sheik and Marth.
So he can get himself out of troublesome situations pretty well.
Yeah, I think he has like very great micro, not even micro execution exactly, though he's very good at that, but micro decision making. Even though I think his macro game plan with Sheik is kind of outdated.
Do you think is it just because like he knows like the hard counter more often than not to like maximize a punish off a skirmish?
No, I think it's when Mewtwo King approaches a small skirmish, he is better than anyone else at evaluating like what the frame data on this skirmish looks like based on the specific scenario and like what they've been doing and what the mix-up is. And his opponent often will not really understand like what they can do to beat what.
Yeah.
And they'll do something obvious, and he's playing the mix-up game, whereas they're just trying to find one reasonable thing to do. And so he'll read their one reasonable thing and beat it. And I think that's like the classic Mewtwo King way of beating a player.
And we kind of see that a lot, especially when he plays Sheik Dittos.
Yes, well I think depending on the matchup, this skill is more or less helpful. I think it's a lot less helpful in Sheik Fox. And I think it's very helpful in Sheik Dittos. It's the most important thing in Sheik Dittos, and that's why he's like the best in the matchup.
Do you think he has a little bit of a hard time when his punish game is out? It's one of those kind of games where like the other character will strictly out punish him. The Ice Climbers and the Puffs.
Yeah, sometimes. I think he might just have mental blocks against those characters. I think his style could work there. Although, I don't know, you might be right that macro is really important. I think you need macro to approach those matchups. And I think his macro strategy is kind of poor a lot of the time. Because he's so reliant on beating things with micro strategy.
Yeah. And that's why he picks Fox, right, against Puff, because...
Yeah. Well, he has a very simple macro strategy applied to Fox versus Puff. That's good enough that his micro strategy can sometimes carry him.
What do you think about Plum?
He's really fast. He reminds me of PP, where he switches back and forth between doing really fast, sort of cheesy things, and like extremely legitimate, solid fundamental neutral.
Yeah.
And because you know he can do the solid fundamental neutral, you can't abuse the cheesy things. And when he brings them out, they really work. And the way he does shield drops is better than everyone else. Most players have practiced shield drops out of specific other movement options. And so they'll only be consistent with a shield drop right after they stand up, or after they wave land, or after they do an attack or something. But he, at any point in his movement, can stop and shield, and then he can wait any amount of time before he shield drops.
So he understands like kind of the mindset of, I'm in this position, but I could choose not to do something, and he understands what's going through his opponent's mindset, and he can kind of play off of that.
Yeah, and just his execution on shield drops is more diverse and varied and better than everyone else. And he abuses that a lot to move really fast on platforms, and it looks really weird, and no one is used to it. And that's really good. And then just he has such solid fundamentals backing that like you can't just adapt to that to beat him. So he's like really hard to beat.
Have you ever gone to play him in any capacity?
Oh my god. At CEO 2015, when he was bad at Sheik Dittos, I think I would have beat him, but Chudat was unseeded and got moved into our pool and double eliminated. But I then played Plup in some friendlies, and he kind of figured me out over the course of our friendlies. But at the beginning, I was winning and I would have won. Since then, he's gotten good at Sheik Dittos, and I haven't gotten to play him since then.
Ah. Well, speaking of a guy that used to be able to play, you still do play a lot. What about Dewan Shroomed?
I think he plays really safe, and he's fast, and his execution's solid. He doesn't do anything hard, but he doesn't mess up anything easy.
How does he get his openings? Because it seems like he runs around. Like when I watch him play, and I watch him play matchups, like I just don't understand how he gets openings.
I think he really, like Mewtwo King, he understands micro game extremely well. He's one of the other best players at that, at like recognizing how a mix-up works when his opponent doesn't, and winning the mix-up. Because they're just looking for anything to do, and he knows like 5 things to do, and finds a read on that. I watched him a lot versus Falcon, trying to figure out why he's the best at that matchup. And I kind of feel like his game plan against Falcon is to jump in, get hit, DI in a weird way, and then win the skirmish. But I haven't studied him against Falcon extensively enough to really understand.
I don't understand how he wins Falcon with his game plan, but he makes it look miserable.
Yeah, he never loses to Falcon ever. So, I don't know. I need to figure out better how he's doing that. But in general, I think he's like the definition of like a safe player who doesn't mess up, so you have to outplay him. And I think a lot of lower level players can't, and that's why he's so consistent.
And then Swedish?
Swedish is safe, simple, even simpler than Dewan. Because he's not even fast. He's sort of slow and safe. But he doesn't really choke ever. He like doesn't mess up simple things. His game plan's always smart.
So you mentioned earlier that Mewtwo King is like a micro-based player. Do you think Swedish kind of falls in the opposite end? Because it seems like he plays
yes.
from very safe zones.
Yeah, his macro game is much more reasonable. His micro game is average, I would say. But his game plan in pretty much every matchup is good.
Play good positions, have good risk-reward scenarios.
Yeah, except I don't think he's great versus Fox, but he's managed to dodge Fox for like 5 tournaments in a row.
Dodge Fox?
Yeah. But in every other matchup, I think his game plan is very good, and he doesn't really stop following his game plan. And just that is kind of enough, I think. Like, the other aspects of his game aren't that good.
He has a pretty good punish game.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, like, above average, but because he, like, doesn't mess up and he's not that bad in any category, he's sort of always able to find, like, a way to beat his opponent.
I would agree. I mean, like, when I watch him, I'm like, he didn't do anything particularly, like, spectacular or phenomenal, but you played the macro game really well.
Yeah, he plays the macro game correctly, and he doesn't mess up the micro game, so he's usually playing from a decent position. Except, again, I think his macro game against Fox is, like, not very good. I think he corners himself too much in that matchup.
What was the, so we mentioned that. Are there any other Sheiks that kind of, like, wow you, like, over time? It doesn't even have to be, like, modern, but, like, just over time that you, like, notice about certain players.
My favorite Sheik is definitely Drugged Fox.
Why is that?
He's the only Sheik who makes Sheik Fox look good for Sheik.
How do you think he does that other Sheiks don't? Because I think Plup can look pretty intimidating in that matchup.
When Plup plays versus Fox, I feel like his fundamental game plan is not quite there, but he's so fast that he kind of outspeeds them.
Yeah.
And if he can't outspeed them, I don't feel like his ground spacing game is, like, really good enough against Fox. But Drugged Fox, I feel like he always knows exactly what the Fox is doing. He always kind of, like, keeps good spacings and just continuously makes good decisions against Fox in, like, a crazy way. It's really hard to make good decisions against Fox because he's going so fast. And you kind of lose track of what he's doing. You get confused. But Drugfox doesn't get confused. He keeps making good decisions the whole time.
So you
And
always
it's
feel
just so
like there's
dull.
nothing overwhelming for him.
It looks like he never gets overwhelmed. He sometimes breaks out smart, good stuff, and when he does, it's very obviously intentional. And he never lets his smart, good stuff kind of suck him into a weird rhythm. He always plays a smart, good rhythm and smart, good game, and I really like watching. He's definitely the Fox I modeled myself after. I mean, the Sheik modeled myself after.
So with Sheik, you know, I think you've, you know, had your fair share of complaints with her, and from when we look at top players and, you know, to kind of parallel to League, I think a lot of top players like the idea of control.
Yeah, I've heard you say this theory before. I think I've seen it in your Ask FM.
Yeah, it's the Marth. Why people like Marth.
Yeah, because she kind of abuses mistakes.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? Because like in high-level League, like a lot of characters like LeBlanc or Zed, you know, because they have the potential to outplay, even if their stats are nerfed, like people like those type of heroes. And I feel like that's why a lot of people like value Marth and Fox so highly. But Sheik doesn't really fall into that category. So like, would you have? I mean, are you okay with Sheik? You know, like given that like she kind of relies on waiting for mistakes to happen, or do you wish that you played another character where you can kind of initiate more?
I kind of feel the opposite. I feel like if Sheik maintains a fundamental strong defense, I don't think she's waiting for mistakes. I think you get to a spacing and people will crack under that spacing. And when you're at that spacing, boost grab is a real mix-up. So you're putting on real pressure. And I think Sheik's neutral is more fundamental and good, even in a theoretical world, than like Falco's. And maybe even Marth's. I don't really think Sheik waits for mistakes. I think Sheik suffers deeply from making mistakes herself, is the thing that annoys me about her.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see. So you disagree, so I take it that you kind of disagree with Hax's assessment of Sheik.
Yeah. Well, he thinks Sheik is just really, really bad. He thinks that Sheik does anything in particular so much as like lose to everyone. I think Sheik is pretty decent at like a 20xx level. I just think it's hard to get there because of like reaction tech chasing, small mistakes in edge guarding spaces. If you accidentally full hop, you're kind of dead. You have no way to adjust your momentum in midair, a terrible recovery, and bad downward hitboxes. If you mess up, your movement's really hard because you can't just dash dance. You kind of have to do other stuff. You have to maintain your spacing because your whips are very punishing for you, more so than other characters, I think. I feel like Sheik is a very hard character that is good if you master her, more than someone who rewards errors.
So, you feel like she's a very honest character at high level?
Yeah, like the most honest, probably.
But I can see why. I think for me, just kind of going aside, I think a lot of people hate Sheik because of kind of like how she does that low-level play.
Yeah, I think the two big things at low-level play are people haven't learned how to crouch cancel yet, and people can't whiff punish, down smash, or forward tilt.
Forward tilt.
Yeah. So low-level Sheik, you can kind of spam forward tilt and they can't hit you. But once they get a handle on the timing and how to punish it, she becomes very honest.
Yeah, and then you have to be really smart because nothing's really free because like they know the hard counter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, have you ever thought like in an alternate universe, like to go back in time, that you would not be a Sheik main?
Yeah, I think my mindset and the way I think and play and practice is more suited to Falco.
For which character? Falco?
Falco.
Okay.
I'm probably also naturally very suited to Puff. I still do a lot of air movement stuff, even with Sheik. A big part of my game is mixing up whether I fast fall aerials or not. Like I'll do no fast fall aerials as low as possible in someone's shield, which isn't something other Sheiks do. Because it hits their timing when they think you empty landed.
Have you ever played Silent Spectre?
Oh, I played him a lot. He does that for sure.
Yeah. He's the one that like really stands out to me when I think of slow fall, fast fall mix-ups.
Yeah, but it's unusual with Sheik. People have thought about it with Falcon because of Silence Vector, but
I can see you playing Falco. That'd be really interesting.
Yeah, I think I would be quite suited to him. I've been playing a lot of Fox lately. I'm kind of thinking Fox might be useful for a lot of matchups, and he's really fun and extremely good.
So what matchups would you think about bringing him out? Or
I think
you can get more specific and also include stages too.
Yeah, I think FD and Pokemon Stadium are Sheik's worst two matchups, and Fox is good there. I think Ice Climbers and Puff both have strategies that might be impossible to beat with Sheik. I'm not completely sure because people don't execute them properly. But in the future, I might need Fox for those. And it's just really nice when I play someone and they take me to Stadium to not have to play Sheik against Fox. That would be really nice to be able to play Fox against Fox on that stage.
Yeah. I'm trying to work on a chain grabby Fox, except I don't practice, so there's issues.
I have like a natural talent or something for Fox's chain grab. I'm really consistent at it. I never had to practice. But I have a lot of problems with Fox. Like I can't consistently do running up smashes.
What?
I can't. I mess it up. I practice it. I still mess it up.
Do you think it would realistically come out anytime soon?
I used it at NorCal Loves Teams.
You want to? NorCal Loves Teams. Okay, got it.
At that tournament. I played, in round one, I played Miku's, local Fox, who's very good against Sheik, and quite bad against Space Animals, and I thought I was playing very poorly at that tournament, and he beat my Sheik game one, and I barely clutched game two on my counter pick, and then he took me to FD, and I just said, like, I'm not doing this with Sheik. I went Fox and easily won. I three-stocked him.
Damn.
So, there's that. I've been playing Fox all weekend, though. I haven't been playing that much Sheik, and I was playing very poorly. And I think it's easier to play the Fox Ditto than to play Sheik Fox.
Yeah, I think so, too. Ugh, Sheik Fox on FD.
It's a nightmare. Not as much of a nightmare as Sheik Fox on Stadium for me right now.
Have you played Leffen on either of those stages, even in friendlies?
Yes. It was okay. I don't know. I think I play much better against Leffen because I think his play style is so cool and I have so much fun the whole time I'm playing him. But I think I go up in skill level as a player.
Rumor has it that you used to have a Marth secondary. Well, I mean, that was your first character you've ever played, so I guess...
I was not a real Marth player ever at that time. There was a brief period of time when I decided Sheik was too bad and I wanted to be a Marth main. And I played exclusively Marth for 2.5 tournaments.
Why 2.5?
Because I lost to Pizarro Flame in winners of the third one and I didn't want to lose at losers. I lost to Nick Emwoodier twice and I beat Alan once. And that was my Marth's whole career.
Well, you beat Nick Emwoodier.
No, I didn't. I lost to him with Marth.
I see.
I think Marth is not nearly as fun as he seems like he should be.
Oh no, he's a miserable character to play as.
When I think about playing him, it sounds so fun, but when I play him, it's not very fun. I don't know. I don't like him as much as Spaceys or Sheik.
I feel like if I turn incorrectly once, or I whiff something, like I'm not having fun.
I don't know. I just feel like I have to dash dance, and that's really all I do.
So you feel like he's like a different Captain Falcon?
Not quite. He's a little more interesting in the way he's representing threats. It's hard for me to explain exactly why I don't like playing him that much. I think I just like jumping.
Well,
not really a jump.
I hate my Marth sucks, by the way. Sam, if you ever play it, or if we ever get drunk enough at your place and we get into secondary friendlies, you should never lose a stock to my Marth, like ever. This is so bad.
My Olimar, like with all my other secondaries, is good against Sheik,
Damn.
and a little less good in every other matchup.
So like, you know how you go down the tier list of like, everybody has a Fox secondary and then maybe a Falco, and then you bring out the mid tiers and then you bring the low tiers. So
You're marked as a low tier?
It goes Link, then Ness, and then Marth for me.
Expat was trying to develop a Yoshi because he wanted to learn how to beat Amsa by playing Yoshi.
Yeah.
And I remember I thought his Yoshi was the worst of all 26 of his characters. He played Yoshi a lot and kept talking about his Yoshi. And I told him, your Yoshi's worse than your Pichu.
Dude, I think my Pocket Peach is way better than my Yoshi. Pichu's not bad.
Yeah, definitely. Yoshi's my worst character. For sure, of the 26. Pichu's fun.
So we're kind of coming to a close. Are there any other thoughts that you had? Or any shout-outs either?
Shout-outs. Nothing's particularly coming to mind.
Shouts to your mom.
Shout-outs to my mom.
Shouts
my mom
to
keeps
Jesus,
telling me I can
shouts
switch
to Dewan. I don't know.
My mom says that I should switch to Fox.
Wait, really?
Shout-outs to my mom, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I told her a little bit about Melee, and she said, I think you should play Fox.
Does she actually call it?
No. My parents both came to Genesis 3.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they watched me they watched me lose to 4%, decided that I lost because I was nervous because they were there, and then they left immediately.
That's so funny.
I don't really think that's why I lost, but...
Poor Sam.
Shoutouts to my parents coming to Genesis 3 and supporting me.
You lost a 4% for your first breakout performance with your family.
To 4%.
Feels bad, man.
I beat Prince Abu and I lost to 4% at that tournament, so 4% is the best spot for me to best.
That's actually pretty adorable. Alrighty. So...
Alright.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Alrighty.
It's fun.
Have a good night. I'm going to stop the local recording.